All right, so we're back to the tedious, nitpicky little stuff. Sewing these two cars back together. I ran the abrasive wheel down through here so that both of these things could be tack welded flush. This is the Challenger, and this is the 70 Charger package tray. And so those are welded all the way down, and then a bunch of little pieces. I don't know if you can see those all in there. Basically had to square all this stuff up and then put a patchwork quilt of steel pieces there to kind of mend that back up to that C-pillar. Also, I cut the leading edge off of the package tray overlay, the piece that holds the speaker tray, and I cut about 3/4 of an inch out of that so that I could lower it down a little bit and have the package tray go a little straighter into the back window, because it was sloped uphill quite a bit, as is the one in my car. But I never really did like the way that looked, so I'm taking the opportunity to kind of flatten this one out, give it a little bit better visual through the back window. Anyway, I've got this all tacked back to the car through the old spot welds that got drilled out, same location. And then I'll put that top piece back on here once I get done over in that corner, repeating this operation over here of mending this all back together. Okay, so I went ahead and slathered all the seams on this with some brushable seam sealer, not to waterproof it, but to make sure that all these different little pieces of metal that I've welded in there don't set up a vibration somewhere along the line. Just a precautionary measure, so everything's kind of stuck to itself. And then I went ahead and hit it with a little primer, and so we'll go on from here. All right, what I did was I cut about 3/4 of an inch off of this vertical face of this panel here that carries the seat latches. So I've basically got that minimized. It still falls below where the actual finished package tray will be, which would be above these speakers. Just drop the speakers in, make sure there's no interference with my lower package tray. It's not hitting anything down there, bound up. And then I took this upper panel, put a break in it so it was a little more sharper transition, and slid it in behind this face panel, and then I welded the overlap right here. So that's adding that finish piece to the top side, and you can see from those blue marks it's well below my original line for where my headliner works in. So I'm pretty happy with that. I don't have to alter the headliner, except for a little bit. It's about 3/4 of an inch further forward than what I have on the headliner, so I'll have to trim out the face of it a little bit, but that's not too bad. And then also this goes straighter into that back bottom window over there, which was something that I really wasn't crazy about on my car. I had left the I used the 06 Charger, and it had significant uphill slope to the package tray by the time I was done. And of course I still have the headrests and everything, which are very close to the ceiling. But at any rate, that's what we got going on now. And so I'm going to continue to secure this on the back side. All right, simple enough on the back side. I've just taken these tabs that were left on this package tray and connected to the back of the Challenger, and I've just with a level gone across and basically make sure that everything planes out to my flange over here at the rear of the window, and then just welded them down across right to the top of the Dutchman panel there. So that's all secured in. Now let's see if the my other panels still fit, because I had to move this about almost 3/4 of an inch forward, so they might be a little bit short. Might have to remake these back panels. I oversized these panels just enough to where they'll be able to cover that back area, but also got to remind myself to put this sound deadener on the bottom side here of this sheet metal panel, making sure that it didn't set up a vibration, because it's just 035 sheet metal. Want to make sure it doesn't start to buzz or rattle. All right, so I just got done hitting all the bare metal with a little black self-etching primer, a little zinc chromate, and so that's kind of what it all looks like. Of course, there'll be a finished panel that goes over top of that, but that closes out to the back window, and that's what it's looking like on the inside of the car. It's a lot more flat, going straight back into the window. So I'm a little happier with this one than the one I did for myself. At any rate, time to move on to the next project. All right, after puzzling over how I was going to join this irregular panel with this substructure over here, which also has an irregular shape, I come up with this solution right here. Basically, I have it's a U-channel, and it's slanted because that's very close to the outer sail panel here. Is only about 1/4 of an inch off of this substructure right here. So I want it to lean in a little bit, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to slide it into this slot, which is about 7/8 of an inch tall now. I've cleaned it out and straightened it out to where it's just 7/8 of an inch all the way across there. And what that'll enable me to do is to scribe on the top of this piece here the shape of the upper panel, and then scribe on the shape of the bottom panel. And what I'll end up with is, over here you can see this is what I've already done over here. So it's a neat way to basically you know, mend both of these irregular shapes together. You know, if you try to put a flat plate on there, it would be pretty awesome looking. So what this does is it does it pretty neatly, and so that's what I'm getting ready to do on the other side. I've already mended this side glass pocket over here to this this belt pocket over here. So at any rate, that's what I'm up to now. Okay, so I slid it into that pocket, had a little bevel in the front here that I cut on it first and tucked it in the pocket. Then I traced the upper shape over here, and then I got underneath and traced the lower shape. So I'll trim this off just a little bit, proud of that line, so I have some material to you know, weld and melt, and then I'll pop that in and weld it top and bottom, and that'll mend those two areas together. And that's what the piece looks like trimmed out. You can see they're two definitely different shapes, so joining them up would be problematic if you try to use a flattish plate. And this seemed to work out okay on the other side, so I'm going to try it again. Okay, the next thing I want to mend together is the remaining inner quarter panel piece here, and this window tray for the quarter windows. So I want to stabilize all that. So what I've done is I've got a piece of 70 thousandths, I bent 90 degrees, and I did something similar to what I did on that connection back there for the belt pocket, because this is a odd shaped panel, goes in, goes out, goes in, goes back out, and then goes back in at the end. So I went ahead and cut the profile on it, and so this piece will lay on top right here, be welded to this top along this edge here, and then along here, and that should bring those two pieces together, and that's what I'm about to do. All right, so that's what that's looking like, all tied in here. And I've got one more piece to fill in here, and we're going to call that done for now. We got to do the other side, obviously. I've got a lot more work to do here. I have to build up this tower and get a real strong point for the belt hoop to attach to up here. That normally would be a lot higher. That's this attachment point up here for where the belt feeds through, and then over to the front seat. At any rate, that's for another time. This is an exercise in getting the two cars tied together solid. So the next thing I'm going to have to do after I complete this indoor section here is get back there and tie the bumper structure to the back of the car with some frame rail extensions. And then the car will be pretty solid. So anyway, moving on. All right, while I'm waiting for some primer to dry, I just started toying around with the idea of how I'm going to attach this upper belt loop. This normally goes, and this location up here, you see it's much higher than we can put in because it's right in the window opening, obviously. So I'm starting with this side here, just kind of recovering the bare minimum of the panel that has the plate with the two attachment points for the loop, and then maintaining this shape here and this shape over here. It gives me a good relationship as far as my front to back, as far as where this needs to locate. Obviously it's telescoped down quite a bit, so it'll need to be, while this normally would fit straight up, that would pinch the area for the window itself, the glass itself. So I'm going to have to tilt this out a little bit in order to make it parallel with the glass, and also far enough below this aspect over here so that I could have a door panel that slopes downwards from this window. Also, I'll have to figure out what kind of a structure I'm going to put on the back. And while I'm not ready to get way off into this project right now, I just wanted to kind of see for myself whether this was going to work or whether I was going to have to introduce some other kind of a frame piece in here in order to substantiate this, in order for this to be a good pickup point for those belt loops. Anyway, just toying around with that idea, see how that's going to go. It may not end up being what I do, but just got to let things kind of process here for a little bit. Okay, that little forward patch of 70 thousandths over here in the front completes the tie-in on the passenger side. So now I've got to come back over to the driver's side over here and finish out what I started over here. Okay, so this side's all locked in, and just dusted it in with a little zinc chromate primer there. So it's on to the next adventure. All right, I'm out back of the car now, and I want to connect the back of the existing frame rail to the plate that is on the inside here that supports the bumper. So the first thing I've done is I've made these 3/16 plates up, 3 holes in them, just under 3/8 of an inch, to slide over the existing studs that are sticking out that held the sub bumper on the Challenger. So that'll be my attachment point for the rail extension. All right, with the plates primed on the back side and secured with the nuts that came off of the bumper extension, what I'm trying to do now is establish my angles to get back from this plate all the way around to this plate over here. Let's see if we can see it here. There you go. At any rate, I've got it marked out over here, and I've got it marked out over here, based on the a distance off the center line over here. I've got the center line marked here, and then if you turn around over here on the tail side, I also have the center line marked right here, so I can get my distances and get these two outriggers centered up in parallel. Now they go uphill quite a bit from this point here, so I've got a position. I'm going to be using a 2" by 2" piece of steel as my outrigger. So I've got it spaced off about a ½ inch from the end of the plate. So I had to take a piece of, basically I'm using a piece of 3/4 inch wood that's 2 inches wide. I'm slowly working my angle here on for the top side of the bar, then it comes in pretty square at the top over here. So that's one piece, and then I've taken a second piece over here, and I've gone ahead and used this piece here to target my angles for my uphill slope over here. Anyway, it's kind of hard to see in here, but at any rate, just whittling away on a couple of pieces of wood is a whole lot easier to get your top profile, because it's a compound. It's longer on this end than it is over here, and it's also beveled away, and it's not perfectly level, and neither is the backside of the car plate. So just taking this and cutting a little bit off the ends and working it in until I get the angles. When I get close, I cut a fresh piece so that I have, in case I don't have the exact pattern, just keep working it in until I have something to transfer to the metal. All right, this gives you a little bit better view from the side over here of what I'm trying to accomplish. This little uphill slope over here to meet the plate on the back side over here, and then to meet that angle on the lower plate over there. So that gives me my side profile, and my top profile is on the other piece of wood. Anyway, that's what I'm up to now. Okay, so there's the finished piece of 2x2 welded into place. So now I got to get about business of cutting the other side and fitting that up. All right, with the body now secured on the chassis, it's time to get back in the inside here and finish off this seatbelt mount. So I popped the glass in to its location to make sure that nothing interferes with the actual mounting of the glass. So when I get this upper piece located, there's mounting bolts here, obviously, for this ring, and when they're tightened completely down, they protrude out the back side of these nuts. So what I've got to do is I've got to get that up here. I've already trimmed it up a little bit to get it in place. You see this one little area here kind of registers it where it needs to go relative to the belt loop, or reel I should say. And then over here I can eyeball it to see how much clearance I have to the face of the glass and make sure I have it located where it won't be a problem. Anyway, that's what I'm up to right now. Okay, so I've got it temporarily tacked into place with a couple of tacks so I can tilt it in and out until I have what I need, which is some clearance between the glass and this bottomed out seatbelt bolt. Now I'll have to take patterns here. I want to put some 3/16 steel in here so that it's securely held back to this area over here on both sides, and then I'm going to cap the top, strengthen that up. Later on I'll come back in with this piece here. This is the support that usually screws in on this panel on the stock Charger in order to support the top of what would be the rear door panel here. So I'll just have to relief cut it around here in this area, but I still have these mounting points here that will work out. At any rate, that's what I'm doing now. Okay, so this is what that bracket looks like with the 3/16 ears on the back side over here to get welded up to the car. Of course, it'll be welded along this bottom edge also, but also just a little fortification in the center to tie all this across over here with another piece of 3/16 that runs across this plate here from ear to ear and across the whole bottom here. It's welded up, so a little bit more substantial than just trying to put a piece of sheet metal back in there. It is 50 thousandths, and it's pretty stout, especially with these shapes in it. But you never can be too strong on this kind of a point. Anyway, I'm going to be putting it in the car in here in a bit. All right, so that's what it looks like, all welded in. It's continuous welded. It's not spotted in. And I just did it in with a little zinc chromate self-etching primer. So that's how we got it worked out here, and seems to be pretty good. At any rate, moving on to the other side. Okay, so that's the other side of the belt loop security point attached on that side. So that's both sides of that done. So the next thing I'm going to do is work on, I have to make a filler piece for the inside of this B post over here in order to do the proper uptake of this vertical molding here. I'll show you that in a minute here. Get around to the other side of the car. Okay, basically this has a little rubber return here. It's kind of rounded off and then it drifts up into here. So I have to make a piece that's going to basically finish out this so that this has a smooth transition. So I'm working on that now, and I'm starting with some 090 tubing, and I just thought I'd show you some remnants of my days in the stock car realm. This is the extent to which they would go to lighten the tubing before they put it together for a chassis. What they used to do is, this is DOM tubing, which is called drawn over a mandrel. You see there's no weld seam on it. And what they would do is they would want to lighten this tube because there's a tolerance when they produce it, obviously, from the manufacturer. It's not completely uniform on the inside, but nevertheless, what they would do is they would turn this, lay this down, so that this was as close as they could get it to the spec, which for the chassis department was 090 thousandths. So after they did that, they would have to go around with a sonic tester, and you could see where they've tested this one here is plenty thick. This is 092.1 over here, but unfortunately we have a fail on this side over here, 098.8. So if NASCAR was to put their sonic tester on that point, the tubing for this chassis would fail. So this is why this ended up in the scrap bin. That's why I ended up with it over here. Here's another one. Mark over here. It says it's 097, or excuse me, 089.7, or geez, 089.7. Anyway, this side fails, this side passes. That's because this is drawn over a mandrel, so it's not completely, it's not machined. So machining the outside naturally thins it on possibly on one side more than the other. That's how they would. This would accumulate over the entire size of the cage. When you're building an entire cage, if you could minimize this by even a few thousandths over the length of all the tubes that went into the chassis, you could save quite a bit of weight. So just thought I'd show you that. Okay, so I've taken that piece of 90 thousandths inch and 3/4 tubing, and I drew a center line on it, and I have a pattern of the inside of the B post that I'm trying to match to that center line right here, right now. Got just a cheap pipe bender over there, Harbor Freight deal. It's good enough for the stuff I'm trying to do here. At any rate, I just got that curve going in it now, and now I'm going to segment it. Okay, so this is how this is developing. As you can see, I cut it a section here, and now I've got a piece in here that basically complies with the inner part, or the rear part of the existing B post. I'll show you how that fits up in here. This goes in on the back side here, and so that'll finish it out on this side. And then, excuse me, on the inside here, this goes up here and finishes this around to the window. And you see this slot here, that's space for the rubber molding and the overlap. And I get a little further along here, I'll show you how that all fits back together. Okay, I've got the basic piece installed. Still have a little bit of tuning to do on it. As you can see, this added piece rounds this over nicely here in this window opening, and it's actually a piece of trim, finished trim. At the same time, it's a piece of structure in the sense that it's bolted to this base over here, and then it's bolted again through the headliner into this embedded seat belt bolt that's in this rail here, and that gives an additional tie in over here to make this B-post a little bit more robust. And as you can see, this piece of the trim flaps over this rounded edge over here. I still have work to do to smarten up this little transition here. This kind of curves around and in, so I'm going to have to come up with a little flange over here and see how I can blend that in a little bit better. That's just basically, I just put the tab on and got it bolted up to where it needs to go right now. This will be covered by the lower door panel. I'm also thinking about putting an additional flange on here just to cover this from here to here, because it doesn't reach down to its location, because the doors are much higher on the Challenger. So all the trim comes in way up here. As you can see, here's the top of my trim over here. So I'm gonna have to do something to make this little transition look a little neater and look a little more intentional. At any rate, that's the idea, and that's as far as we're gonna go this week. So next week we'll be just tuning this in to start with, and then thinking about doing the other side, and we'll go on from there. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.